he started really worrying that his family was going to be in trouble, and he started moving them. He was getting information, and he was able to move them into the reserve. But he's like, we got to live our lives too, and like, I got to take my kids back to school today, and I'm just afraid that someone's going to kidnap one of them and hold them for ransom or something. So that was really his big fear.
I don't want to show the way you guys did it in the documentary on this podcast for what happened to him. I want people to go see that because it's not like you were there when it did, but from an artistic standpoint, that was very moving. How you guys explain what went down. But can we at least tell that story so that people can understand how much this really comes home? Because it made me sick, not just that they killed him, but that he wasn't the only target there. There was like a sadistic manipulation, and then after they were getting him, they weren't stopping. Yeah,
and I mean, a little more background behind it. I got stuck there in 2020 during COVID. I literally landed in South Africa, the last flight out of Atlanta, and the whole idea was, I was gonna work on Rhino Man, try to flesh it out more. And I quit my job. The nonprofit was buying the film out, and then COVID happened and kind of took us down a whole other path. And long story, but I spent 9 months there, and I got to spend a lot of time with Orlat and the team and Anton, and I'd already built a little bit of a connection there through the first shoot and working and staying a little bit in touch, but really got to become close with Anton on this trip. And he was constantly communicating with me when I was back in Atlanta, and I was like updating him on the film. He was telling me what was going on at Timbavati, and I would always be like, "Hey, Anton, can we, some of the guys there, can they come out and re-record something?" I'm like, "Sorry, I'm going to torture you again, the 1 millionth time."
Are you sure you're getting, or it's not you guys? I mean, there was a film guy hitting the ground, hitting the deck when bullets are flying right there. No, you guys are calm as hell. He's like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah, I mean, every time we were out there, and we shot basically a whole other film during 2020 that we put on the side because Rhino Man ended up becoming the main project. But every time I was out with these guys, I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna make you do this again. Can we do this?" And they were like, "No. It's like we want you to be here. We want to get this message out." So that was incredible. But this was 2022, the beginning of 2022, and the film was finally, we were like getting to the point where we had this amazing score that Simone Wilson, this composer, put together for us. We had a color grade. We were finishing up some of the sound mixing. And I was communicating a little bit with Anton because we were getting close. This poster by Marcel van Leeuwen, he created it. And I remember, I think it was pretty close to this time, I sent it to him. I was like, "Hey, here's the poster that we created." Yeah, we got a copy of it right here.
Got it right here. If we can throw the camera on me for 1 second later.
Yeah.
Got it for the cam.
And Marcel, actually, I think he's done some stuff with Vetpa and Ryan. But
that's Anton.
That's Anton in the middle and a couple of black rhinos. And just this, like, I don't know, it just draws you in, and it's got this kind of surrealist look to it. It's incredible art.
Very cool.
But I sent that to Anton. I was like, "Hey, here's the poster. It's finally coming together." And he sent me this awesome message. He's like, "John," he's like, "I'm just so proud to be a part of this project, and this is like incredible." And I forwarded that on to Marcel because he's such an amazing guy too, and him and his wife Ashley, they're pretty incredible and just super supportive of this project.
Wait, which one was Marcel again? I'm sorry.
He's this amazing artist, and so he's the one that created that poster. But I think it was the next message I got from Anton. Like, I'd sent him something and didn't hear anything for a little while. And then all of a sudden he's like, "John," he's like, "Hey, sorry, I didn't get back to you right away. It's been pretty hectic here." He's like, "I actually had a couple of guys recently put a hit out on me." And I think he said, whatever it was, it came to about $1,000 per person for 2 people to take him out, $1,000 US, which is kind of insane. And the first message was like, it's not that big of a deal. I've gotten threats throughout, it's part of the career. It's part of the job. Threats come, threats go. We do what we can to be safe. We reach out to the police. It's not going to be a huge deal. And I was like, "Oh, all right, but this seems a little sketchy. My fear always as a filmmaker making this film as we released it was that it would increase his visibility and bring more threats upon him. But this was before we were even done. And so I think I got another message maybe a week later, and he was like, "Yeah, these guys are coming after me. I might have to move my family, try to protect everyone, go to the reserve more." And I think at that time I actually reached out to Ruben.
Did he know who they were? Like, did he know who they were with?
He and Orlat, when he tells his firsthand side of it, I mean, it was definitely instigated by some Rangers that, as we were talking earlier, had turned and were giving information and finally gotten rid of these guys. And when they left, they basically threatened Anton's life. And then that's when these threats started coming to him. So, you can't 100% certainty say that, but it's pretty evident that they were involved in some way. So yeah, we just started going back and forth, and I called Ruben up, and I was like, "Hey, I don't know if you know this, what's going on with Anton," because Ruben had, he'd worked very closely with Anton over the years. He trained him. Anton worked with Ruben training Rangers, so they'd become close friends. And Ruben was like, "No, Anton hasn't told me anything about this." He's like, "I'll reach out to him and see how things are going, and then also reach out to some other people to see if they can help with this situation." And I think it was about a month or two of getting messages back from Anton, and each time he sent one, it was like escalating to where
is he going back? But he's going back and forth on deployments during this too.
He's out there in the field working, doing his job as a Ranger, and also trying, being very concerned about his family who's at home when he's out there. And so he basically, the messages just started getting a little bit more tense, a little more, I wouldn't say ever got frantic, but you could definitely tell he was starting to worry. And Anton is never has
I could
that
hear
mood.
it on those phone calls you recorded.
And the voice messages are in the movie, some of them. And so he started really worrying that his family was going to be in trouble, and he started moving them. He was getting information, and he was able to move them into the reserve. But he's like, we got to live our lives too, and like, I got to take my kids back to school today, and I'm just afraid that someone's going to kidnap one of them and hold them for ransom or something. So that was really his big fear. And so it kept going on for a little while. And then all of a sudden, Anton was like, "Hey, I think we scared these guys off. We had SAPS, which is the South African Police Services, involved, and I think they put in like an intimidation case, and they thought that they'd scared these guys off and pushed them off, and it got quiet. And so the threats kind of disappeared. And so I think it was about 2 months after that, there was nothing. And it was actually the last message I had with Anton. I think I had the final mixes of the film. It was like the last thing we needed to do was sound mix.
This is 2023?
2022, beginning of July.
Okay.
And I was like, "Hey, Anton." He's like, "I'm almost done with the film. We're getting really close. I really want to come in September." This was July. And, share it with you and the team. I mean, he had seen the film, and we always use it, like consulted with him, because we wanted to make sure we're on the right path and honoring what the Rangers are actually doing and wants. But this would be the first time where we'd have like a proper screening, try to get the whole team there, the Rangers. And so I was really looking forward to this. For me, that was like the ultimate, like have him and Ruben there together. And so I was just telling Anton, I was like, "I think I'm going to be able to come in September. Like, this would be amazing. Put on a screening, be with you guys." And then Anton sent me a message back, and he's like, "Hey, John," he's like, "I'm really glad you're coming, but I wish it was a little sooner." He's like, "In a couple of weeks, it's going to be World Ranger Day on July 31st. And he's like, we're going to throw a party. We're going to braai. We're going to have, some Impala meat. And I just, really wish you were here." But he's like, "But yeah, I'll see you when you get here and chat to you soon." And then I think it was maybe a week or so later, I woke up in the morning. For some reason, I had my phone on silent. I think it was like, I was just like mentally not very focused. And so I was like, I'm going to start. This was literally the first day. I was like, I'm just going to have my phone completely off in the mornings. Not going to look at it. I'm going to go work out, get into a good routine, all this stuff. And so I'm like working out. I think it was like 5:30 in the morning. And a good friend and roommate at the time, Josh Lumsden, he had been a part of our organization, was the board president of GCC for a while, and knew Anton well too. And so I'm like working out. He's sleeping in the next room. All of a sudden he comes in the room, and his like hair's kind of crazy. His eyes are bloodshot, and just like he was standing there, and it kind of like made me take a step back. I was like, "Hey man, like what's going on?" And in my mind, I was thinking like someone in his family died or something. And he looks at me and he goes, "They got him." And I was like, "Got who?" He's like, "They got Anton." And I don't know. I think, you know that the threat is there and this is a possibility, but especially with that couple of months of nothing happening, it just almost kind of went out of my mind. And yeah, I think I was just completely in shock. Like I was just completely emotionless. And I was like, they killed Anton. The hitmen got him. And he's like, yeah, they came to his house and they shot him in front of his family. And
well, didn't they literally, like, his little son, who sounded like he was like 4 or 5 years old or something, like they came up nicely to him and asked him where the father was, like with a smile, and then went and got him?
I mean, I think what I've heard from them was, I don't think it was the youngest son, but it was kind of like one of the middle sons.
Oh, he had multiple. Okay.
Yeah. They were asking for water. Basically, they pretended like their car had broken down and came up with a bottle and said, hey, can you we need some water for our car, like our radiator or something broke. And they went up to Anton, who was, I think, working on his truck at the time, and basically pretended like they needed help. And Anton's just always in that mode of like, like, hey, how can I help you guys? And I think it had been so long since these threats, I mean, not that long, but a couple months. And so it just wasn't even in his mind. He's like, how can I help you? And then they basically pulled out their guns and shot him right there in front of, his kids were there, his wives were there. His wife, Grace, came out, and I think she was right there, and she screamed, and they shot her in the stomach. And then one of his kids tried to get his sidearm and ran off, and they shot at him before taking off. And yeah, I think when we all heard this, it kind of rocked our worlds. I mean, he'd become a very close friend, and he's just such an amazing human being. And I remember, like, Matt called me shortly after that, Matt Lindenberg, who started this whole thing. And when he called, that's when I think he was already breaking down because he'd known for some hours before me. But yeah, I just completely lost it and was pretty devastated by the whole thing.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.